Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. We are just days away from the Valorant World Championships and many rumours already emerging as to exactly what's going on with the Scrimbux behind the scenes, what teams are looking particularly good. PRX haven't looked bad by any means at all, and TenZ believes they might well be his favourites to win the event. Fnatic of course are going to be the easy pick, but he reckons that PRX have a very good chance of winning the entire thing. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. First of all, you guys might have seen this around. The Esports Hub arriving into Valorant. This is something that other games have had for some time, and often when other games do introduce this, it doesn't look particularly good, and even the Counter-Strike one isn't great, and it's quite difficult to navigate through it, unless when there's a major on, they do a decent job of that. But yeah, the Esports Hub, the first look of it, and we saw yesterday that if you go on here to the partnered teams part, you can see the Fnatic team, the players, the results, and you know, what's happening for the World Championship itself. And also, you know, I thought this is a pretty funny version that NRG Bad Emperor puts together for their roster. And well, look, we'll see how well this team does at this event. It's a strange season in some ways for NRG because they started off quite poorly. They then looked very good during the latter half of the regular season. They couldn't quite overcome Loud come the playoffs in the grand finals, but now Loud have fallen off a bit. NRG didn't have the greatest run at Masters Tokyo, especially compared to what Optic were doing last season with a similar roster with Crashies, Victor and Finesse, but of course Som and Artist there instead of Marved and Ye respectively. And there's been some questions that if they underperform here at the World Championship, whether some changes such as that might well be in order once again. Now, this was also spotted from Kang, right? So he's out there. Edward Gaming, they've arrived into Los Angeles, getting ready to go, and he is absolutely tearing up, it seems, the leaderboards or the ranked play ladders in the Americas right now. I mean, have a look at these recent performances, like match MVP, of course, right? Every single time, but I mean, yeah, the poor guy's unranked, and he's just going and then absolutely demolishing people. So just straight up good luck if you come up against Kanking in a lobby, I suppose. But yeah, as we say with NRG, maybe Artist is going to go for the bald buff right here, but they have a pretty difficult group that they find themselves in. They should be able to get out of it, but it's not exactly easy, and we'll see exactly what that is here in just a couple of seconds. Before we get there though, I wanted to mention some Scrimbux. So every player that streams, it's an interesting time of the season because most players, their season is done, and the likes of the Sentinels and the 100 Thieves guys, they will be leaving their team shortly, and those teams will be making changes. They are making decisions. We've seen that with TenZ and the Sentinels questions over the last few days, and even with Aspas and the like. If Loud weren't to win champions, we're expecting some big changes coming out of the organisation as well. And to be honest, there's going to be loads of changes, as there always are in Rostermania, as things happen after the World Championship concludes, especially with such a long time until the season begins again, and these teams that are already gone have plenty of time to consider what their plans are. Now, in Tier 2, their seasons are also over. Even the Guard, M80, like, their seasons are done. The Guard have qualified, congratulations, but there's nothing else for them to play. They're not still grinding the game, are they, right? They're not sitting there grinding it out and giving good scrim practice to the likes of NRG. So it's difficult for these teams to actually get good practice going into the big tournaments, but we have seen that, you know, most of streamers, so as James FF says here, Vanity, B-Dog and Jake, for example, if you watch their streams closely, you will find some Scrimbux on the right-hand side, seeing which players are playing against which players. So I think even Ye was stepping in to play a couple of games here most recently, but also we saw that Crew were scrimming against the DSG Game Changer squad and were apparently up 15-0, and then they just like called it a day. So you can see that getting good practice here is not exactly easy. And EG were up 10-2 on this QOR team, which is, you know, it's like this Rose team, for example, here. If you have a look at the link that we go to, it's like a top 40 ranked team in the North American side. So, you know, not exactly a phenomenal squad or like a top team or anything, but these are the type of teams that these top franchises pretty much have to practice against at times because, well, there's not many other better options. Now, we do see 2 games between, like, apparently EG was smoking Ye's team as well, and Loud were playing against Team Liquid yesterday, a couple of the other potential tournament favourites if they were to make the run, but there were a couple of scrims that were a bit closer between teams that are actually going to play each other at the event, possibly. Now, ideally, you don't play anyone in your group, and this is the way that it'll go. NRG aren't going to practice against a team that's in their group, and ideally they want to play teams that they should be able to avoid through the tournament, because you don't want to give anything away, but there's a trade-off there, right? Because if you don't scrim anyone because you're concerned that, oh, if we scrim any team at Champions, then it's quite possible that if we play them at some point, they're going to have an advantage on us, they're going to know how we play, but it's the same the other way around as well, of course. But then if you don't play any of those teams, then you don't get any good practice, right? So NRG played PRX, and we're down in this one 12-6 to PRX, so, you know, it's not a massive deal, it's only practice, but it's interesting to at least look at, and T1 were 10-9 against Na'Vi, at least according to what James Vev looks at and puts together. So this aligns a fair little bit with what TenZ had to say on stream, discussing mainly his thoughts on the favourites for the big tournament itself. He says, yeah, Fnatic are obviously going to be the bookie's pick, but after that, he's got his other favourite team.
Who do you have winning champs?
I think the simplest guess would be Fnatic.
Ooh. Dude, that'd be insane if they sweep every event this year. Dude, that'd be awesome.
But the team that I'm rooting for, try to guess. Try to guess.
PRX.
Yeah. I'm rooting for PRX. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, they are.
And I enjoy that. I enjoy the fun watch.
W Gaming.
Actually, though.
So what do you guys think about TenZ's perspective here on the World Championship? Let's just have a look at the groups here as well, just to see how likely this is. Because every team, if they're going to win the event, has to get out the groups. There's no free buy to the playoffs. So PRX find themselves in this group. So they're with Crew, that's their first round game. And Crew, I mean, we don't really know how good they are. They won the Americas LCQ out of nowhere. And they could be a serious threat this event. It's difficult to say. Giants are going to be pretty good as well. Edward, we know, are pretty good. So I think this group might be sneaky, a little bit stacked here, actually, this Group A. But PRX should be fine to advance, you'd think. Group B is the easiest group for sure. I mean, EG, FPX, Foot Esports, T1. EG should get through that. Maybe T1 get through that. But yeah, Group B is pretty easy, I would say. Group C is interesting for sure. Because Billy Gaming, like BLG, I don't think they'll be able to do much. But between Fnatic, Zeta, and NRG, like, Fnatic will qualify, but, you know, between Zeta and NRG, it's going to be a little bit interesting, though. So I think that's a big one. And then Group D is absolutely mega stacked with Liquid, Na'Vi, DRX, and Loud. I mean, that's just a mega group. So as I say, if you're NRG, you're playing teams like PRX and teams that are outside of your group to get practice that, you know, you're not going to play at BLG before the tournament begins because you don't want to give anything away. Are PRX, though, the most likely team to win outside of Fnatic? I think you'd probably say yes, and it does seem like the bookies generally agree. I just managed to pull this up here. So Fnatic, of course, big favourites, and you know, then you've got PRX, then Evil Geniuses. So the way this really works is, like, let's say you were to put $10 on Fnatic to win, you'll get back 11 plus your original 10. Then PRX, then Evil Geniuses, pretty close in terms of odds. Then NRG, Loud, Edward Gaming behind that. So usually these do a relatively good job in putting together what theoretically should be the case. I think that maybe, I don't know if T1 are getting somewhat underrated here, but it's difficult to say, isn't it? Because once you get down past these first, like, 5 or 6 teams, I would say really past the top 5, it's really difficult to see anybody else winning. DRX, like 25-1, is interesting because they should have the potential, theoretically, to win, but they've just never done it consistently enough to really be considered. So it's interesting to think that without PRX, this might be just a walk in the park for Fnatic, and maybe it still will be. We know what happened at Masters Tokyo. They faced a strong Evil Geniuses in the finals, but EG really were no match for them, especially with the way the vetoes went. So I think in many ways, and as TenZ implies, we're kind of relying on PRX to make this tournament interesting, because if they were to lose early on, I think maybe Fnatic just, it's a foregone conclusion, but we didn't get to see PRX with something at Masters, and that's why the door is still potentially open for that team making the run. So I think it's interesting to see. Of course, TenZ still on Sentinels for now. We don't know what the future is going to hold from this necessarily. I will say this was kind of funny here that they did again. We know the 90 to 95% meme because Slasher said that 90 to 95% chance TenZ is gone from Sentinels, and they say, you know, this show is 90 to 95% cotton. So good stuff from the social media guy. Also wanted to mention this, I thought was some nice words here from Nismo on the M80 team that is potentially going to break apart. That's what we currently believe. He says, it's crazy when I see a top 10 of Valorant players list. Nobody puts EG Ethan in the list. This guy is the complete package, man. I've seen a lot of these lists, top 10, top 20 players over the last few days. news. Ethan, says obviously thanks for the nice words. I thought it was interesting from Nismo to give Ethan this much credit. Not saying he doesn't deserve it, but he's not a player that does get included in these lists a lot of the times. But look, EG are looking great and are one of the favourites for the event, no doubt about it. I know that also Vanity tweeted this out, run it back at Yay. We don't know what's going to happen after Champs. As we've mentioned, Yay is going to go back to a tier 1 team, I would say. Vanity might have a harder time doing so. He's talking about going back to Counter-Strike, I think, and stuff like this as well when CS2 launches, but I don't think we're ever going to get this duo at Cloud9 again, unfortunately, after all the drama that happened this season. And just before we close out, speaking of championship potential winners, there are only 4 players at the event that have the chance to go and become a 2-time winner, because no one's ever, of course, done that before. CNED has his chance after winning it in the first year on Ascends, and then outside of that, we have 3 players on the Loud team that won last year, Aspas, Les, and Salah, because, of course, Sassy and Pancada are not going to be attending. So, but it's difficult to imagine that any of these players win, especially based on what we just saw a couple of minutes ago. So very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.